today we are here at Memories Matter with Big Mitch, and today I have a great guest. It's a long time mentor of mine, and I admire him every year that I was on when I started the police department. He's a great man, and he's going to give us his story today. I'll call him Sergeant Muwakkil, and he's here. I've been trying to get him for months. And I finally caught up with him, ran him down, and he's here today. And this is going to be a wonderful show. He's a great man, he has a wonderful life. And he's going to start by going way back to the beginning. And we'll ask him to start when he was born and the earliest memories from his childhood.
Okay, Mitch, thanks a lot for the great intro. I'm hoping that I can live up to that. You know, it's a big challenge trying to cram.
How many years?
I'll be 83 in August. And I've kind of been a lightning rod for change in a way,
Right.
Just due to how I'm wired, and I have to describe myself, I guess, from the various earliest moments of being actually somewhat conscious of what our social situation was as a people and as a tribe. And I guess I'm just kind of like a lightning rod for change, a lightning rod for getting into good trouble. I guess my path has always been one of trying to help people in trouble.
Right. You were born in the state of Georgia.
Right. My birthday is August 5th, 1943. As they say, I'm a Grady baby.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, as hard as I try, I can't remember much before age 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was very significant because I was introduced to my grandfather for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this birthday party, and he put me up on his lap. And I just knew him as Grandfather Wilson. But unfortunately, he passed not too long after that meeting. So I grew up without him.
Right.
And that's a great loss, I think, anytime you lost any parent.
Correct.
But especially as I grew into the world, that old knowledge, that old school knowledge that's why they call them grandparents, because they're the grandparents. They have a little bit more to add, other than mom and dad.
Right.
Originally, my earliest memories of our stay in Herndon Homes.
Oh, really? Right in the city?
Right here in the
city.
My
goodness.
Right.
Okay.
I was on Gray Street.
So you is a Grady baby.
Right. 468 Gray Street, apartment 7. It no longer exists because the World Congress Center occupies all that. In fact, all that neighborhood is gone. And for the most part, I did attend a school there. Maybe I think I went in about 3rd grade. It's called Gray Street Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
And that pretty much serviced the entire project, which is I don't know how many acres it was, but it was bounded by Kennedy Street, Northside Drive, Simpson Road, and then Gray Street. So several thousands of people lived in that complex there. So the school supported, the needs for the elementary school population. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Grady Homes. Used to work a little extra job there for the housing authority.
Right. So pretty much grew up there in Herndon Homes up until the time I was 9. We had to move because at that time restrictions on public housing was different than what it is today. Sometimes the public housing eventually grew to be a generational thing, but then once you reached a certain income level, you had been there so many years, it was time to find a way to get you out of there. So we had to move out. My father was a postman.
What year was that?
The year we had to move out?
Right.
I would say it's probably around 19. If I was 9 years old, I was born in 43. Around 54, around 52 or 53. We moved into part of the city, Mosley Drive. Which was I think at that time it was it's Mosley Drive, but now it's MLK Drive?
Right.
Yeah, right. So we moved over there, right, not too far from the Westlake MARTA station. In fact, I-20 runs through our backyard.
Yeah, Westlake, Martin Luther King, up the street from the Grant Park.
Right.
Mosley Park, I'm sorry. Mosley Park.
Right. So they decided to bring I-20 through, and they bought out, of course, they back in those days, many of our neighborhoods were wiped out. A lot of our protected black areas were wiped out. They brought the interstate in,
Wow.
and that was sort of the game plan for a lot of urban cities in other states. But they would go through some of the most productive areas of black communities and disrupt them just to bring interstates and that type of commerce coming through.
What did the house look like?
It was a 3-bedroom house.
Okay.
It was, I guess, it was affordable for us at that time. We were not what I call middle class, but my father was a postman, so he made well, and my mother was an educator.
Really?
So we had.
So she taught school.
Yes, right, right. Well, she wasn't actually a full-fledged teacher. I guess they had subs during that time because
Right.
She completed 2 years of college.
Right.
My father, I think his highest level was at 7th grade, but he was a self-taught man, very, very smart man. And I have to give him credit for a lot of my values, some of the arts. He was a postman. He would bring a lot of magazine, Life, Post, Boys Life, and so forth. And I was an avid reader. And I mean, I would just soak up those books like a sponge. And going forward in life, I think a lot of my success was due to my literary skills.
Right.
And I read a lot. I kept up with current events. So that was a big help. And I guess some opportunities coming my way.
Right.
We lived there up until the time that I-20 came through. I think it was around 19. I only spent, let's see, we moved from there. We went to Bolton Road in Adamsville.
Okay.
And we moved out there before really Adamsville was developed pretty much. It was the early 60s. I think I only spent maybe a couple of years there before I went into the Marine Corps. So I did not have a long-term base there in Adamsville.
So what was community and, neighborhood like growing up with the kids in that neighborhood? You have any neighborhood kids and things you did as a youth?
Right. In those days, neighbors knew one another. They knew their names. And they knew you well enough to say, my mama says, can she come over and can you lend her a cup of sugar? My mama says, can she borrow a couple of eggs? So that was, we don't get that today.
You had siblings too, right?
I had siblings, right? I had 3 siblings. We were separated by 2 years. My brother and I were the oldest. My sister came last within that 2-year period. And then later on, 15 years later, we had another brother.
Okay.
Right. So it's 15 years age difference between me and my youngest brother. Right. He's in Minnesota now. Everybody else is here in Atlanta still.
Okay. Oh, really? So everybody's still living and thriving.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So I had a great role in being, I guess, the brother and kind of man of the house. After a few years, some things, changed in our life.
Yeah. So what kind of games y'all played?
Well, they don't play them anymore. Marbles.
Okay, yeah, I played marbles.
We played
too.
marbles, and I had to steal it. And I unfortunately, when I was raising my boys, we didn't get a chance to do that because, and we built scooters out of 2x4s, and we did that too. Little stick horses, and the girls had Coca-Cola bottles. They would have a rubber band and put some of that hemp rope, and they would use those as a doll.
Okay.
We improvised quite a bit during those days. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
do you have slingshots and?
Oh yeah, how could I forget that slingshots?
Slingshot guns,
and bows and arrows. And arrows. We go out there, and actually we made our own kites. We would find the right tree limb, and we put across, and we use cord and make the frame for the kite. And then back in those days, the dry cleaners, they didn't have plastic; they used brown paper bags. So we would make we take the brown paper bags
I
and
see.
take the bow that we made out of the tree limbs, the small limbs, and then we would notch the wood and put a string, make a cross. You know how right, and then we would lay that on top of the laundry bag, the brown paper laundry bag, cut it out, and then fold it over and go into the kitchen and get some flour and mix it up, and that would be our glue.
Really? Did they actually fly?
They flew better than the ones they made.
Okay, wow.
Oh yeah, so we had a number of creative ways to address what I guess during those days, African Americans didn't have the economic opportunity they have now to go out and get the kind of job. So it filtered down to the children and what we played.
Use your imagination and creative skills.
Exactly.
And create all the toys and things you want to play with.
Now, in fact, some years ago, I was looking at some of the toys and the recreational devices that they have. Children these days, you don't. Well, in the neighborhoods I've lived in, I don't see children out playing like we used to. You know,
right?
Everybody would get out and they'd be on skates. We were out playing, but I don't see much.
Yeah,
of that
we didn't have
anymore.
any computer games, so you had to go outside.
Right. You had to go outside. Yeah,
and that'd be your games outside.
Oh yeah. And one of the things that I had going for me though was my dad was very progressive. And I was probably one of the few black kids in Atlanta that had a model plane that flew, that was a gasoline, one of those planes that had a real small gasoline engine on it. Right. And
wow.
You controlled it with cords. Well, my dad, I had one of those at 12. I had one of those at 12 years old.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Boy, you was the envy of the neighborhood.
We had everything.
Wow.
Seriously. We had in projects. Now, well, I don't want to call them the projects, but that's what we refer to them as projects. Yeah. We probably had the first TV. It was a Crosley. I think it was Crosley. And the screen on it was maybe the size, maybe a bit smaller than 8.5 by 11. You could put a piece of notebook paper up there, and that's how small the screen was. It's probably smaller than that. And TV would only come on in the evenings and be off at 11 o'clock at night. And eventually you started getting some of those early morning shows. But my dad would bring the TV to the door of our apartment there, apartment 7 at 468 Gray Street. And the kids would be lined up to watch the TV. He would do that. He would bring it to the door so they could see. So they walk it through the screen.
He was a nice fellow.
Oh yeah. Plus he had a 8mm projector, black and white projector, and he would go down to the community center, which is open, and he would hook up an electric cord, and he would show movies down there every now and then. On Friday nights, he would get those movies and put them on that reel to reel. You know, these were silent movies back in those days. Right.
So kids get entertained.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did elementary school look like?
Elementary school for me was
your teachers.
I started off in a little home school that was over not too far from here, down on this was at one time called Ashby Street, right?
Correct.
But we go south down toward Boone, which was Simpson Road.
Right.
There was a house that was on a lot 2 or 3 doors down. This mother and daughter came from Pennsylvania. They started a little home school. It was a private school. I think it was $5 a month. And that's where my parents, they were kind of high on education.
Right.
So all of us had a chance to experience private school.
So these women came from, right. And they had better schools in the north. So,
pretty much so, yeah. And it's a very small group. It was Sally Kate Knox and Ella. And her daughter, her mother Ella, and it was a very small. I think Ella. No, she had kindergarten, and Ella and Sally Kate had 1 through 3. She only went as far as the third grade.
Right. So you got a little personalized education, teachers there.
Right. I was kind of a curious little fella, and I was fit to be tied to the point that she brought me up to her desk. And I had to sit at her desk because she given an assignment with the rest of the students, and I was so fast that I finished it. So she thought that was going to be able to slow me down. It did help a little bit, but she, at the end of that first year, she said, "I don't think you need to go to the second grade. You're going to promote you to the third grade." So, I
So
can
you
say
skipped a grade.
skipped a grade, right?
Okay.
And one event happened that caused me to not be able to finish up with her. I found school so boring that I convinced my brother. We both went there. He was 2 grades below me. He was and it doesn't matter what level it was, but anyway, we were still at that school together. So I said, let's not go to school. Do you know we played hooky for 2 weeks?
Really?
We played hooky for 2 weeks. We went out. This interview has a rule to it. They say if you love people, you tell them the truth. So it's not going to be the shame in my game to just tell you that I wasn't perfect.
Right.
And some of the things that happened, I'm pretty sure maybe some people in the audience can kind of identify with how mischievous we can be as children, some of the things we do. But that was a very significant day that we were discovered, because the day that it came unglued that we weren't going to school, we went up on the railroad tracks, and I love trains. And we were standing in one track, counting the cars going to our right, and we were standing in the middle of another track. And I just happened to look up to my left, and that was this locomotive bearing down on us about a football field away. And on each side of the train, the men were leaning out, waving their arms, the hands. I mean, we couldn't hear them, but I saw it in just enough time to push my brother off the track.
Wow.
And when the train went by, I pushed him with such force that we both fell to our knees, and I tore a hole in my jeans, and I immediately just broke into tears. I was crying and crying and crying, and
it was scary, traumatic event.
It was a lifetime trauma, almost lifetime trauma. Because later on, when I joined the police department, and I was a Zone 5 supervisor, I would go over there and park up at Kennedy Street and Gray Street and look over there and think of that day a lot. And one day I convinced myself, you didn't survive that. that train was just too close. I mean, it was so close you could feel the hot water from the little steam engines back in those days.
Right.
And I said, it just gave me some very what you call spiritual thoughts about maybe possibly we had been hit by that train, and that our lives going forward was just an illusion. That we had really checked out.
Yeah. But I know it's trouble because you could have lost your brother's life.
Oh yes. Each time I thought about it, I would close my eyes. It was just that. It was just that. But the spiritual part about it was that I wasn't so that much so concerned. But I guess out of the eye of my mother, apple in my mother's eye, and I immediately started thinking about what would have happened if I had not looked up. And I was thinking about the grief and the loss that she would suffer.
Right. Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
Right. Yeah.
So that was a changing pinnacle, a pivot to get back to school.
Well, no, it just so happened that my father's station, he was stationed at Station D on Marietta Street, and like I say, he's a postman.
Right.
And he was just close enough to the street to see us on the tracks that morning.
Wow.
So when he came home, his thought was that we had cut school that one day. And while we were getting the whipping, while I was getting the whipping of my life, my mother came up to the room. She said, "Robert, Miss Knox is on the phone." And she said, "Ron and Todd have not been to school in the last almost 2 weeks."
Oh, man.
So the whole world came crashing down.
So you got 10 days.
So anyway, I don't want to take too much time on this, but you know, this is not the average experience that a kid has. So when he came back up the stairs, he said, "I just don't believe you." He said, "I don't believe that you've stayed out of school that much." He reached out his hand to grab me. Back in those days, parents could could whip the children.
Absolutely.
And plus, he had that big post office belt. When it wasn't a rough grab. He just said, "Okay, I got to get you for that." And I said, "Please, Dad, I can't take it more." Guess what he said? You want to bet?
You gonna bet? Take it. And you did. Yeah. You here today.
Oh yeah, you want to bet? So, but the amazing thing about that is that even though we were punished in certain ways and we were told to go out and get switches, we didn't hold that against our parents. In fact, when I tell that story to people and some of the other little things that you get punished for, we laugh about that.
Yeah.
We're there to see who's got the best story about the worst whipping they had.
Right.
But these days they want to call 911.
Oh yeah. They'll be appalled about that.
You cannot chastise your child for making a mortal capital
different
offense.
Day and time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So. And you progressed there to what, high school?
To high school, and at that time we were kind of changing from the Baptist church. We always went to church on Sundays. Mm-hmm. I won't go through all the rituals of how we went through cleaning up first, and then we actually had shoes back in those days that we had to polish. We didn't wearing Nikes, and we actually had hard sole shoes.
Put that spit shine on.
Right, and we cleaned up the house, and then we went to church. And then somehow, my dad decided we're going to be Catholics. So at some stage, right when I was in the 6th grade, I think I had maybe a year or so in public school between Miss Knox. Oh, by the way, she thought I was just too active. So she said, I think it's best that he change schools because he's a little bit to keep up.
What school was that? You remember the name of it?
Oh, the school that I had to leave after we played hooky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you went from then you went to elementary school.
Yeah, yes. I didn't finish out the year, but she was getting ready to skip me again.
Really?
Yes, she was. She was. Right. Wow. Right. But I could say I was a reader, and
your dad set the tone by bringing a lot of items home for you.
Yeah. So I was reading at a very high level by the time I was in the 3rd grade.
Right.
So even so, when I had to transfer to Gray Street School, the teacher, I was there maybe 2 weeks, and she says, "Ron, Ron, can you help so and so with?" I was helping to tutor tutor some of the students in class because I had already been there. I already done.
You became the teacher's assistant.
Well, kind of, sort of, because like I said, it's all about the reading level, and there was no playing around, and that one-on-one education put you miles ahead of the public school system, right? So I stayed there a few months, and then we became Catholics, and they put us in the Catholic schools.
Right.
Yeah, so I was there from the 6th to the 8th grade.
Where was that school located in?
Our Lady of Lourdes. It was on Boulevard.
Okay. Right there at Edgewood.
Yeah, right.
Right down the street on the right.
Right. Exactly. I went to Our Lady of Lourdes.
They still there teaching, ain't they?
I'm not really sure. I know they have reunions every now and then.
I know before I retired, somebody was taking their kids there. Yeah.
And so that location now put me, by the time I was in 7th grade, going to maybe 8th, I had this feeling of wanting to go into medicine. I wanted to be a doctor. And so there were several days after school, I would walk from there down to Grady Hospital. And during those days, they had the colored clinic and the white clinic. You didn't go into emergency like you do today. They had the colored clinic was over there on one street, and the white clinic was on another street. So I would walk into the colored clinic, and I used to love to smell they back then they didn't have disposable syringes and so forth, and they would have these trays of alcohol in them and other medications. You could actually smell medicine as you walk through the hospital, and I love that smell. So that was that kind of reinforced the fact that one of these days I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be down here at Grady Hospital.
Okay, so right down the street from the school.
Right. It's in walking distance. Then I get a nickel and the bus fare was a nickel back then.
So who taught the class? The nuns?
The nuns, they did.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
the
yeah.
Nuns, right.
What was your favorite teacher up there?
Sister Patrick Thomas.
Sister Patrick Thomas. Okay.
Sister Patrick Thomas. She
did they have diverse teachers, or were they?
No, they were all sisters of the Mercy, I think it was.
Were
it was
what race?
What they call it, or they were white.
Okay.
They were white.
All white teachers.
Right. They were all white students. And then we had the priest there, and there were two things I wanted to be that they wouldn't let me be. For whatever reason, it was competitive.
Right.
I wanted to be an altar boy, and I don't know if you're familiar with what that is. Altar boy, that's the priest serve mass, and I also wanted to be a school crossing guard because I liked that. I like that
patrol boy,
patrol belt.
Yeah, I was one of those.
Well,
I had my little orange belt and silver badge.
There you go.
They didn't give that to you.
They didn't give it to me. I guess Sister Patrick Thomas used to call me her wild one. This is my wild one. It wasn't I was that wild.
Right,
it's just that I was.
You had a lot of energy.
A lot of energy.
Yeah,
plus,
right.
I didn't have any problems with books. So
right.
yeah. So I had a little time on my hands, just even in the classroom. So, at any rate, when I graduated from there in the 8th grade, I immediately went to. They sent me to a Catholic high school down in Louisiana, and so I was caught in between wanting to be a priest, a doctor, and a priest. Somehow, it was something about the Catholic Church and what the priest did. And so this Catholic school is a boarding school in Lafayette Parish, Louisiana, but it's a co-ed school too.
Right.
So I went there thinking that it was going to be a preparatory for me to go into the priesthood. And plus, back during those days, they gave teenagers this. They call them juvenile delinquents. That's what they used to say, a juvenile delinquent. Are you familiar? They don't use that. Right. They don't use that anymore, right? But I wasn't a juvenile delinquent, but I was just busy. I was busy in a harmless sort of way. But went down there, and at this point is when my family broke up. My parents separated and divorced.
Okay. What age were you at this time? Well, this was high school, right?
Well, yeah, actually, it started when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
And I had to really...
Almost like middle school.
Right. And in the worst case situation, I had to kind of confront my father at that point, which left me a little bit of guilt because at that stage, I had to go against my father over something that was happening there at the house. And so, like I said, we have to tell the truth. And so it wasn't that he was a mean man. It's just that people qualify for the limits of marriage, but they never not able to bring home the gold.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what happened to my family. But it set the stage too for me going on in life into personal relationships where I was always chasing family. I was trying to chase that because I would come home and I'd love for them to see my report card, and I'd love to get compliments, and I would love to be doing this and see my father come home and wake up in the morning and my mother would fix him breakfast. And back then, you had most of the radio, WSB radio, was not a talk show then. It was a country western station, and they every half hour or so they would give you the price of hogs on the hoof and what the horses were selling for. And then I hear
it was like a commercial, wasn't it?
Right, and I'd hear them say, "I love you," and he would they would kiss. I'd be looking through a little crack. They would kiss, and she would give him his lunch in a brown bag and fix his breakfast. And that was it was just an ideal world. And when that came to an end, it then started me on a search to get back something that I had lost at a very critical part of my life. Right, yeah. So at any rate, I didn't complete it. I went down there to Holy Rosary. It was in Lafayette, Louisiana. Here I was introduced to the first Black nuns and priests. Father Francis was the Black priest there. He's also the basketball coach, and he was the one that helped me accelerate my skills in basketball, because up until that point, I was 14 years old now. At this point, 13, 14.
Right.
And I think maybe I have a picture on the phone that your wife has of me at 15 years old, and it kind of shows what I was
Right.
doing.
I guess you said you had the height, and he said, "Hey, I can
Well,
use this guy on the court."
well, what it was is that I never really picked up a basketball until I went down there because I was so busy. I had these jobs when I was 12 years old. I would cut grass with the real mower that wouldn't have
Right, just one you had to push.
right, a push, and I would cut grass. I would rake
12,
out,
20 blades. Yeah.
Give me 50 cents. That's 50, 75 cents would get your grass cut and raked. like that. I did that during both winter, all season, and then during the summer there was this little Jewish store on Oak Street. I think you know where they had the shooting with the deputy with the
Right off RDA.
That store used to be a Jewish
Okay.
a Jewish grocery store, and they had a delivery service, which was me, a bicycle, and a basket. So I'd go there.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I was delivering groceries in the West End area, and then after I finished that, I had a paper route. So I always had a job. I always had some kind of job. And I remember when I went to my dad initially, said, "Dad, I think I want a job." He said, "You don't need to work. What do you want?" I said, "Well, I just want to make some money." And so he ordered this. I don't know if you remember the Peanuts. In Peanuts, they have this lemonade stand, right? I don't know if you kept up with that cartoon, Peanuts. Lucy had. They always had
Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown, yeah.
Right,
I guess that's
right.
what it was. Yeah, right. Any rate, they had Coca-Cola had a program where they would deliver those out to kids who want to make money, and they had a booth just like that had Coca-Cola on it. Okay. They had enough room in there for a case of Cokes and some ice and stuff and so forth. So I had that.
You could have your own little business.
I was doing that. I was delivering. Not at the same time also, but the grocery delivery and the paper route, I was doing those together simultaneously. So it meant that I didn't really have take the opportunity to start do some of the sandlot games, the basketball, and the kids would be playing in the street. I'm working. I'm working. Yeah,
you was an entrepreneur. You was out there getting it, right?
Yeah. So once I got down to
that's funny because that's all I know you was doing when I came on the police department.
I know. And the beat goes on. But at any rate, my dad was working up until almost the time he died. He passed at 89 years old.
Is that right?
He was still doing some kind of work. I think he was caretaking for somebody. But he was that spirit that when I think of him, there's this song that came out. Eric Clapton came out with a song years ago, maybe in the 80s. Maybe 2009, I think it was, called "My Father's Eyes." And every time I heard that song, I think about my dad. Although we didn't have that closeness, and actually, when he passed, I had a little bit angry because I won't say resentful of the fact that he lived that long, but we still never connected.
Right,
we never connected, and he was a great person. He had a great ethic. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. He was a hard worker. But my mother was a preacher's daughter, and they met because he was the helped to provide for my grandmother and his siblings, which was about 7 of them. So he worked in a grocery store in Vine City, and my mother kind of met it, but they lived over on Ozone Street, not too far from here. That was a really nice neighborhood with Black people during that time.
Right.
Yep. So at any rate, long story short, I had to leave. I left the Catholic high school there because I felt that I was probably needed at home since she had that new baby and so forth and so forth. Right. So all that kind of came together.
Changed the direction where you had.
Well, yeah. So I was really athletic. The only sport I played was allowed myself to play was basketball because I picked it up down in Holy Rosary, and I was I was really a small forward. I was probably about 6 feet, but I could jump. No, as a center. I'm sorry. So I could jump easily. I jumped most of the centers that I used to, play with, and so
Right.
Father Francis was very essential. Was helping to bring me up to that level because I had that agility, and I remember that Christmas they had the championship down there last year. I was going home for the Christmas holiday in my 10th grade, and he had dressed me for the varsity that last game, and he told the team, he said, "Well, when we come back from Christmas break," he said, "Yankee meat." That was my nickname. Yankee Meat's he's gonna be our starting center. He's gonna be our center for next year. I didn't go back, and so those are some of the little things that happen to you. In itself, it doesn't seem like much, but sometimes being on a team, and basketball was like in Louisiana was like football anywhere else.
Right.
Football was not a big thing down there. Basketball in that part of Louisiana was, and it was one of the few pleasures that I had. So that's when I didn't go back.
Mm-hmm.
I did, yeah.
So you coming back to Georgia?
Came back to Georgia. Finished on up at Turner High School.
Turner High was kind of new then, wasn't it?
Well, it was built in 1954, 55.
Okay.
So people,
I knew Washington High,
right,
Howard,
right,
and then Turner was number 3. I don't know how rotation that went.
Yeah, we had Turner, you had Howard, Washington High, Price, and Carver.
Okay,
it was 5. I think it was 5. Yeah. 5.
Okay,
and it's pretty much the same now in a way.
Right.
What I'm saying is that in terms of the demographics, right. African American up to predominantly Black, it's still the same way.
Right,
we I imagine if you do an audit, you can
kind of went back to the same way when you went.
Things
to school.
changed,
Right.
but they remain the same.
Right.
So, and you it doesn't take rocket science as long as you're aware of what's going on. You can see how the dynamics swing.
Yeah, a lot of Blacks went to Turner High School.
Turner High had a reputation for high academic achievement, and you had Hamilton Holmes came out of Turner High.
Well, I think he was president of Clark. If not, but they named one of the buildings behind it.
Well,
Hamilton Holmes.
He became the executive director, Grady.
Oh,
first Black to do that.
Okay.
They named Holmes Boulevard now. They named that after him.
Okay.
They gave him the MARTA station name.
So they named a lot of places after him.
Marvin Arrington came out of there. The Brown, the CEO and the police chief out there, he went to Turner. There are a lot of I'm gonna say celebrity types, but big name types that came out of there. Yeah, and plus we had two of the first Blacks to integrate Georgia Tech, Ralph Long and I forgot the other student is I can't think of his name right now. So you did have, but it was all because of that principal. The principal and his wife, Daniel Davis, they're remarkable in terms of keeping that school on track. And they had this term "sadiddy." You remember that the term "sadiddy"?
Right.
They said Turner High is a sadiddy school.
Well, it did have a upper working class neighborhood community.
Kind of, sort of,
because you didn't have a lot of houses, nice houses. You went on down the Collier Road and all in that area. Oh yeah,
and you also had
Westlake area,
and you also had Sergeant Walker, Emmanuel Walker. He went there too.
Yeah.
Walker,
the great golfer.
Yeah, the great.
He can
golfer.
play some golf. Yeah.
Well, they had.
Were y'all the same year?
No, he came out a couple years before I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. But Turner had a golf team. And that's probably why I think that's where he took it.
Oh, okay.
Turner had a golf team.
Right.
So
now he did a hole in one over there at Adams Park.
Who did?
Sergeant Walker.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think they have him on the board over there.
Oh, really?
He hit a hole in one. Yeah, remarkable. He can play golf. Yeah.
Well, I consider golf to be the ultimate sport. It beats everything. You got to have a lot more going to become a golfer.
So high school, you there in high school?
Yeah, high school,
and,
right.
And anything that pivot you there?
I was good in the books, along with some other. A lot of us were good in the books, but I never studied. I never really studied. If I had to do an assignment, I studied the night before. If I had to do a term paper and anything like that, I could crank stuff like that out. But if I had really applied myself, I guess some other things might have changed for me. So that really translated into me when it's time to go to college. They didn't have the type of scholarships then. You got there was some limited scholarships back there. Remember, this is 1961. I graduated in 1961.
I was 1 year old.
Okay.
Turned one.
Okay. 1961. And instead of you being able to go to Georgia Tech or University of Georgia, they gave you a stipend to go to one of the state black schools. We had to go out of town to college. You couldn't go to college. You couldn't go to Georgia Tech. You couldn't go to University of Georgia. Any of these other white schools. And that only started changing maybe a year or two after, maybe a couple, 3 years after I came out of high school. Because you start going to those colleges, right?
Okay.
That contributed to sports also. I think Bear Bryant at Alabama was the first white school to bring on black players because he wanted to win games. So we know what that story is. Right. So that helped accelerate enrollment now. So the world kind of flipped pretty quick during that time.
Okay.
So I finished up. I think I was a pretty good student. I was a very good student, and but I had this one situation in which, as a police officer later on, I kind of relate to some things that happened. As I said, we're gonna tell this story. We have to tell the truth. They had a game over there, the Dixie Hill. It was a Dixie Hill. Turner was right on the edge of Dixie Hill. They had the Dixie Hill game.
Yeah.
So when I transferred halfway through the semester, there was this game that somehow they hung around. Some of them kind of went to school some of the time, and sometimes they didn't. But I was the new meat on the chopping block. Now they got a target on me. So one day, one of them came up and he says, it was raining that day, and we couldn't go out on the playground. So he came up to me. His name was Humpty. Everybody knew he was a little gang member. They did have small gangs back in those days. They didn't shoot you back then. They cut you with, they carried knives, and that was a fearsome tool. But anyway, he came up to me and he says, "Aren't you the so-and-so was talking about my mama?" And look, he's picking a fight.
Was that you?
He came to me and said, "Ain't you the so-and-so was talking about my mama?" If you want to fight, all you had to do was bring your mom into the game. That caused a lot of fights. So man, I said, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." I think I was 16, a junior. No, that was 10th grade. So I was 15, 16. So anyway, he says, I said, "Man, I don't even know you." And one or two of the gang members edged him out and said, "Get him, Humpty, get him, Humpty." And I looked at Humpty, and that's one of the things I didn't want to do was fight. But if you drew me into a fight, now you're going to have a fight. I was the last person you really want to get into a fight with. I was quiet. I wasn't clear. So anyway, I went to the movies, and in the movies, I think I saw in a movie once say, "Let me take my jacket off." And I said, "Let me take this jacket off." And so at the end of that, my taking that jacket off resulted in them picking him up off the floor. They looked at me, they looked at him, they looked at me, they looked at him. They picked him up, and they went out the door with him. So the next day, walking home from school, they ganged up on me right there at the intersection. I had to run for my life. They caught up with me, but in catching up with me, one of them had a brick, and he hit the wrong person when he tried to hit me, hit one of his own people. So it was on. But my fear factor was such that I was really in fear of my life. I was in fear of my life. Most people can't understand it, but back then, you didn't have anybody, the school obviously didn't have a handle on some of the things that were going on
Right,
out
in the
there
neighborhood.
in the neighborhood. So I was up against
So
the
you
neighborhood.
dealing with that almost
Right.
alone. You were dealing with that issue by yourself.
By yourself. My dad
Right.
wasn't there, but I had this neighbor next door. I said, we called him Flip. I said, Flip, your dad has a gun, doesn't he? He said, yeah. He said, can you get in and loan it to me? Because I think the Black Rock's going to try to jump me tomorrow. And he got it. And he brought it over to the house about 10 o'clock. And for about an hour and a half, I had a little room at the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I was practicing how I was going to do this the next day. I said, well, they're going to probably I'm going to take the shortcut going out the back door, and they're going to probably ambush me in that little place back there. And I said, I'm just not going to say anything. And I know they're going to get around me, and I'm just going to go and pull it out. I'm not going to say anything. And I'm going to start in the front and then right, and I'm going to go to the left, and then maybe somebody behind me. And I had the execution planned out. It wasn't an execution, but self-defense.
Right.
Because they had knives.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know, I packed that gun for 2 weeks. I take it up. I had it tucked in my waist, and when I got to the locker, I put it in the locker, go all day, and every day I go out. They say God takes care of children and fools, and would you believe that they never bothered me?
No interaction.
They never bothered
Wow.
me anymore. And I think about it, and I said, had they done it, there'd been no doubt, because I'm kind of wired like that. I don't have certain fears I don't have, but at the same time, nothing extreme when it comes to protecting your life.
Survival. Yeah.
And I had that in me.
Right.
And so I felt confident, and they never bothered me. And I thought about it as years went on. I said, if I had done that, it would have changed my life.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I was blessed with, or gifted with, it never would have happened. They would have put me away. You know, I would have been a juvenile delinquent.
Didn't happen. So hey,
been juvenile delinquent, and wound up in what they call reform school. That's what we used to call it back then. They called it reform school, the reformatory, right?
Right.
And so, at any rate, going forward, nothing any more remarkable than that happened in high school for me that I can really think of.
Right.
But at the same time, I had to think about my future, which was, what am I going to do in life? This thing about being a doctor was very strong for me.
Right.
And so I didn't have the money for college. My mom was willing to try to do something. She was going to get hold of the money, but I didn't want to put her under that.
Right.
That
pressure.
That pressure.
Because you got other siblings.
Right. Plus, I was in a bind because I'm the man of the house, but at the same time, the dynamics in the household is such that we have 3 teenagers in the house, and it's hard for you to be a disciplinarian to your siblings. And there were certain rules and regulations that we had grown up with, and now my mother's there by herself with these children. She doesn't have the authority figure that my dad represented. Right. So, but I'm now in kind of conflict with my siblings because, I'm a child too in a way in their eyes.
Right.
You don't have you can't tell us what to do.
Right.
So I decided I'm going to the military. I've got if I don't get out of here now, I'll never leave. If I don't leave the house now, I never leave because I feel obligated to take care of them.
Right.
That may be hard to relate to, but I was heavily involved with trying to keep my siblings together.
Right.
And I've got to grow into manhood and do some things on my own, and I just didn't. It's the same rationale I used when I thought I wanted to be a priest, and I said, well, how can I be a priest and have a wife and children? Because, priests can't marry.
Right.
They still can't marry. And I wondered, what does that have to do with me being a priest? So I said, no, I want children and I want a wife. And I was young enough, but I was old enough to make that decision that that being a priest wasn't worth it. So long story short, I decided to go into the military, get a GI Bill. That way I could go to school and medical school and so forth. And so I went to my dad. He went to the Army. And he achieved the rank of corporal. That was pretty good for a black soldier during that time. That was in the 40s. I think 1940.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So he became a corporal. So I went to him and I said, Daddy, I said, I want to be a doctor. And I think I'm going to the military so I can get the GI Bill. He said, well, what branch you going into? I said, Marine Corps. He said, you better leave those people alone. That's all he said. He said, you better leave those people alone. I didn't really have an idea, but he had an idea because he knew he had been in the military, and there's a soldier and there's something called a Marine too.
Right.
So he kind of knew what he was talking about in a way.
Was he thinking that they'll be the first to go?
I guess that's what he was talking about, but it was in code. There was no conversation. Well, I think you're good in the books, and I think you'll do good in college. He said, let's keep you out of the military.
No, he didn't explain that.
He didn't explain that, right. Although I went to him with that, we still didn't have that type of relation. We didn't talk on an everyday basis. And there's a lot of other areas of that could fill in with our relationship, but we don't need to go into those. It's just that we were just not buddies. We didn't feel. We had no ill feelings toward one another, but he just wasn't part of our life because he started another life and another family. I originally had intended to go into the Air Force. So I was going to join the Air Force because I love planes. I built model planes and I flew model planes. I was all over the place, Mitch. I had so much stuff going on.
Something intrigued you about the Marines.
Well, what it was is that we played soldier and so forth in the woods. And we actually had Daisy BB guns, and we used to live fire with BB guns and play soldier. And I know when my mother got me, I begged her for a BB gun. And she said, Ronnie, that's what it was. She said, I'm going to get you this BB gun, honey. She said, but promise me you will not, you can shoot the targets and you can shoot up at the birds if you want to, but don't be out here shooting this in anybody's direction because you'll put somebody's eye out. We had this innocent little rivalry going on between the Cowley Street gang and the Racine Street gang. I don't know if you're familiar with Racine Street.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Cowley Street was a dead end, and then you were in the backyards of the Racine gang. So one particular Saturday, we were going to have a shootout. So we went in there with live BBs.
Yeah, I've been hit with a BB gun before.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, it came so close, I'm almost sure it touched the hairs on my eyebrow. At that point, I surrendered. I turned around and I said, my mama was right because I realized how close I had come to losing my eye. It was one of those things where you had to almost feel the pain before you believed it. But she cautioned me against that. And I realized from that point on, I was so lucky. I called it being lucky because another millimeter.
You would have been a cyclops.
I'd have been blind.
You've been a cyclops.
I've been a cyclops.
Yeah.
That's right. So it's like I said, we weren't bad, but we were just daring children. So when I went down to the recruiting office on Peace Street, it just happened that the Marines and the Air Force were in the same office. And I saw that picture of the Marines up there. I said, that's where I need to be in the Marine Corps. I said, because they're the best. There was always a standard to what I did. It's always a standard. I said, they were the best. But they say they're the roughest too, but I can do that. So I went in there and I talked to the recruiter and I said, well, when I go in, I said, I think I was going to the Air Force, but now I see that picture up there. I think I want to join the Marine Corps. I said, when I go in, I said, but I want to be a medic. And he said, oh, you want to be a medic? He said, yeah, you can do that. He says, when you finish Paris Island, they're going to send you to the corpsman school, and you'll be a corpsman. I said, okay. I joined up, but I got what they call squirrel. That was a bait and switch.
Okay.
Fast
Get you in there.
forward to going into the Marine Corps. I'm at Paris Island one day. I'm almost halfway through training, and I asked one of the drill instructors, "Sir, the private request permission to speak." He said, "Speak." I said, "Sir, when can the private expect to go to school to be a corpsman?" He looked at me and he took me by the ear. And he said, "Come with me." And he marched me all the way to the front of the squad bay. We didn't call them dormitories, squad bay.
Mm-hmm.
And he waited a second. He says, he pointed to a sailor and he used certain expletives to describe him because he said something. You see that tall, lanky, ganky something walking down there in that uniform with an ice cream cone on his head. You know, because the sailors, we had Navy personnel at Paris Island too.
Uh-huh.
They were there for medical purposes and so forth and so forth. He said, that's your corpsman right there. He said, the only way you're gonna be a corpsman is that you're gonna have to join the Navy. And he said, I just don't see that, Private. Now get back to what you're supposed to be doing. So I realized then that I had been had, you know. I had been had because the Navy corpsmen, they take care of us. They feed.
But Marine had nothing to do with
that. You don't have a Marine Corps. You have the Navy corpsmen.
They were doing this job, getting you into the Marine Corps.
Right. That's right. Yeah. It's what we call being squirrel. Mm-hmm. I got squirrel. So at any rate, now I'm in the Marine Corps, and I'm in Savannah. I was supposed to go out on in August. I was one of those fellas that never had a girlfriend in high school. Never had a girlfriend. I could have had girlfriends, but I didn't do girls. You understand? So I just stayed. I was just a kid who helped his mom, and so I worked in the house. Right. So, at any rate, did not know it at the time, but there was this young lady across the street whose mom thought that she found an excellent boyfriend for her daughter. She was scared to go to. She had just come out of Howard, graduated from Howard, and she's going to Spelman the next year. And so she said, "My daughter needs a nice boyfriend." So she came over to my mother, and they arranged a meeting. I didn't know this, so wound up that I met her. In 2 months, I thought I was in love. And I was supposed to go to Paris Island that August.
Now you signed up for the Marine Corps.
I'd already signed up for the Marine Corps. But I could tell you, I'm one of those fellas. I get on the phone, I call the recruiter. And I said, "Sergeant so-and-so and so, this is Ron Wilson. I'm supposed to go to Paris Island this month. So-and-so." But I said, "But my girl's birthday is in November the 7th, and I want to see if I can stay here for her birthday." He said, "What?" I said, "I have a girlfriend. Her birthday is in November, the 7th." And I said, I want to be here for her birthday. They say if you don't ask, you don't get. He said, "Hold on." He said, "Okay, I tell you what, her birthday's on the 7th. He said, "Okay, we have a group leaving out on the 26th of November. I want you on that bus. I want you on that bus on the 26th to take your young so-and-so down to Paris Island." They let me do it.
Oh, really?
They let me do it.
Oh, wow.
They let me do it.
Accommodate that.
But see, the thing about it is you got to have courage to be brave enough. Courage enough to be brave. That's what that was. Because all the way instinctively you just knew there's going to be something wrong with that. Who gets? But see, that's the way my life rolled. It's always rolled that way. So, at any rate, go ahead on that gets done. Talk to Rick. We go that morning that I left out was one of the most profound moments in my life because I had to be down there at 6:00 at the old on Ponce de Leon.
Oh, wow. And
they didn't have a bus running out there. So, I had to walk from Bolton Road down to Hightower to where the bus was waiting. Bus started around 5:00. But they didn't have a bus running out to Collier Heights. No bus service out there at this point. My mother got up. She fixed me breakfast, sausage and biscuit and eggs. And I got ready to leave, and I said, "Bye, Mama." I said, "Getting ready to leave." And as soon as I put my arms around her, I burst into tears. She was crying too. Mm-hmm. When I left out that door, Mitch, I was crying, running and crying. I was running all the way. Mm-hmm. Running, crying from Bolton Road to Hightower. because my heart was broken. But at the same time, I knew I had to.
Finna go be a man.
I had to make that decision.
Yeah.
I had to make that decision. That was one of the most demanding decisions, to leave your mom there with 3 other children. But at the same time, I knew I'd be making money, and I had an allotment going. So it helped. It helped some.
Right.
Leaving Atlanta, get to Savannah, talking to that's where the bus is going to pick up all the people who are going to Parris Island on that one trip. Okay. So I'm talking to the recruiter, and I said, when would be eligible to get our first promotion? See, I hadn't even hit there yet. He says, what? I said, when would be eligible to get our first promotion? He said, well, probably at least by 6 months after you come off Parris Island. He said, now they do have a meritorious promotion down there where some people, if you're good enough, you'll get a stripe off of the island. He said, but you don't have to worry about that. When he said you don't have to worry about that, I took that as code for meaning that your black so-and-so and so ain't going to get it. You know, you're not going to be good enough. But when I hit Parris Island, that night, we arrived. You arrive at Parris Island in the dark, and you leave in the dark.
And where's Parris Island?
Beaufort, South Carolina.
Beaufort, South Carolina.
It's an island. It's surrounded by water. It's one of the most, the only way you're going to get off of there other than the main gate is to swim out. And that's why some people who tried to get out of there, they have not, recruits who want to go AWOL.
They didn't make it.
They don't make it. You're right. Yeah. Now, it's not happening all the time, but they let you know from the beginning. There's no way off this island, so they don't even think. You ours now. We roll onto Parris Island that night. We were greeted roughly, talked to. I remember the Greyhound bus, once it pulled up, and that drill instructor got on the bus hollering and going on. All you could hear was people deep breathing, scared breathing. And guess what I was doing? I was slouched down in the seat, covering my mouth because I wanted to laugh. No, seriously, because I knew it's just a game. It's a game. It's a psychological game, you know. And so at any rate, to the extent that it never went away, and my nickname down at in Parris Island was Smiling Wilson.
We want to get that smile off your face.
Oh yeah, Smiling was. I was actually able to get away with it, but there was some circumstances. I do know that. Fast forward and going into maybe before we even started training, we had to wait 2 weeks for forming. It's called forming because if you're east of the Mississippi, you go to Parris Island. If you live west of the Mississippi, you go to San Diego.
Right.
So I was Parris Island, and then the senior drill instructor came to me one night. We were still waiting for a few more people so the battalion could start training together. Mm-hmm. He said, stand up, son. I stood up. He says, you're a card carrier, aren't you? I said, sir, I don't. He said, what did I tell you about I? It's the private. I said, sir, the private doesn't understand the drill instructor's question. He said, yes, you do. He said, you know what I'm talking about. I knew it was something about you when I first laid eyes on you. Now I figured out you're a card carrier. He says, you know, a card carrier is a spy that the NAACP sends in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, okay, that's where he was going.
Yeah, that's where he's going. A spy the NAACP sends in to see if we treat everybody the same. He said, but when you make your report, that's what he said. When you make your report, you let them know that here in the Marine Corps we treat everybody the same. I was a magnet. It's just. I was a magnet from the very beginning.
You drew a lot of attention.
Uh-huh. That was a very diverse platoon 386. And we were in probably the best part of Parris Island they had the 1st Battalion, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Battalion. 3rd Battalion was called Hollywood because they had brick buildings. They didn't have the Quonset huts, the old World War II buildings. Marine Corps has always been very ancient when it came to things like that, modernization. It was very diverse. We had about 3 or 4 punch outs from OC, Officer Candidate School. They were from Yale, Harvard. We had about 5 or 6 from between Yale, Harvard, and had one from Georgia Tech, Hargrove.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were there. Once we started training, about a week, less than a week after we started getting ready for training, we were coming out of the mess hall, and the drill instructor said, you. So the squad leaders, they had just picked the 4 squad leaders. Each one of us would have a 75 in the platoon. So each one of us would have 1/4 of each of those that we were responsible for to make sure that they did the right thing, so forth and so forth. So I got the first squad leader's position. I was 4th squad leader. The other 3 were college graduates. I was the only high school graduate there that got that position. But anyway, going forward, because of my literary abilities, I became the platoon reader. Anything, every night for the time we were there, we had this book that one of the well-known Marine generals had written, Chester Puller, and I would have to read a chapter from that. One time they had they wanted everybody to write a letter to this young man who had cancer. And he said he'd always wanted to be a Marine. So everybody in the platoon had to write a letter. 3 or 4 days later, drill instructor came to the front that morning. He says, we have 4 Ivy League OCS candidates in here. We have such and such and such and such and such. And they don't know how to write a friggin' letter to a 10-year-old kid. The best letter we got in here came from, stand up, Wilson. You had the best letter in here. So a lot of the attention was based on the fact that I could write, I was literate, so forth and so forth. The other African American brother, his name is Pearson. He's from Richmond, Virginia. We're the only 2 blacks in there, and so we had people in the platoon who'd never seen a live. In fact,
been that close to African American.
That's right. He says, Wilson. You and Pearson are the only real live black people we ever seen in our life. They were from West Virginia. They had given them nicknames. They were brothers. One was named Mary and one was named Jane. So it really...
They left the coal mine.
It dawned on me that this Marine Corps and who fought these battles were these kids from the farms and us from the cities. And we fought those battles. We went to war.
Rich man's war, poor man's
That's
fight.
right. That's right. That's right. That's what I realized as I began to look at them and I see them and get to know them and really begin to really like the fact that we were all in this thing together. You know. Moving on from Paris Island, there were a couple of situations that happened.
So you moved on with your career and left boot camp and you headed shipping you out to where?
Well, actually, we had to do infantry training now. We just got the basic 18 weeks on Paris Island. Now we got to do 6 weeks at infantry training. So we learned to shoot the machine guns, the bazookas, and just combat stuff. So since I get the stripe off the island, I'm a PFC. I'm an acting platoon sergeant. So they're telling me what to tell the troops, what they have to do on a day-to-day basis. So this infantry training unit facility, it also had Marine recons who were equivalent to Navy SEALs. The Marines have their Navy SEALs, but they're called recon. So we come in late, everybody's tired. We had to be up again at 5 o'clock. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I said, okay, guys, in the morning we're going to be such and such. All of a sudden, these 5, 6 white guys run through the formation. It was just instinct. As soon as it happened, I turned around and I said, it takes a hole to run through a Marine formation. And they know we're boots, we're recruits. We just barely been called Marines a few weeks ago. So one of them said, "Ho!" They stormed back and said, "Who said that?" I said, I repeated. They said, "Do you know that who you talking to? This is Corporal Abear. He's the middleweight champion middleweight wrestler in Mississippi, from Mississippi. I said, well, my name is Ron Wilson. I come from the streets of Atlanta. And so he made a move and I made a move. Not to this day, I cannot remember how I did it. I decked him. He went down. They looked at me. They kind of reminded me of Humpty in high school. They looked down at him. They looked at me, almost in disbelief. They reached down. Two of them got one side, arm and leg. They got legs, arms, and they trotted off with it. That night, nobody got sleep because all they could talk about was what had happened. But I'm sitting there listening to it. This is my golden moment. Now I have reached manhood, and I have since not realized, you know what? The key to this is, first of all, you got to have a little bit of courage, and that is where you're going to build leadership. Right. That taught me the importance of leadership, because those guys felt like I had protected us, and I dared to speak out against it. And that's all they could. Nobody got any sleep because they just kept, did you see how Wilson did such and such and such?
Right,
and then so and so and so and so. Man, I was glowing inside. But at the same time, I took it as a lesson later on. Right. So anyway, we leave Paris Island. I mean, we leave recruit training. We get out of there. Now this is February through March, middle of March. So I take 20 days leave home. I think it's 20 days leave home. And now I go to 8th and 9 Marine Barracks in Washington, D.C. And now I'm on the Presidential Honor Guard. That's what that is. That they had selected me. In fact, they had called me over to the battalion office at Paris Island, and told me they had this job in D.C. Asked me some personal questions. Would I be able to pass a very severe background investigation? And so I get that investigation still had not been complete when I hit D.C. Got into D.C. May 9th of 1963. That was a few months before Kennedy was assassinated. I'm now just getting acclimated to what it means to be on the Presidential Honor Guard. So a lot of work involved. And I was really squared away, though. I mean, I knew how to dress neat, even though that was a spit and shine unit. We used kiwi on everything, including that. We didn't have patent leather shoes or patent leather visors. We had to polish those. It took a lot, so much that when you're in the sun in D.C., the sun was hot enough to actually melt the polish. And so you were constantly keeping those special shoes we wore.
Keep it shine.
And right.
How many years you was there in D.C.?
3 years.
So that was the duration of your time?
It wasn't supposed to be.
Okay.
It's supposed to only be there 2 years. And one day they called me, and I was corporal by this time. I gotten 2 more ranks. They said, Corporal Wilson, you have orders for Fleet Marine Force West Pac. I said, that's Vietnam. He said, yeah, that's Vietnam. I thought I had skated. I had 16. You had to have 13 to go over they call in country. So I thought I had skated. That I wasn't going to get it. I said, darn. I said, okay, I'm going to take 10 days leave home and go ahead and tell my mom I'm going to Vietnam. And I did, came back. Orders still hadn't been finalized. The orders somehow got stuck for 4 months. They say God takes care of children and fools. And I skated. I didn't have enough time to be sent, so I spent another year up there.
Okay. And then from there you went to college?
Yeah, after I got out. I just want to squeeze this in. During the time I was there, 2 significant things happened. Number one was the funeral, the Kennedy funeral, and how I was chosen to be able to get that T-shirt there because he was killed. I got there in May. I barely had any time in. One day, maybe in July, platoon sergeant came and says, anybody here Catholic and knows how to serve Mass? So I knew how to do that. So
and he was a Catholic?
He was Catholic.
Right.
So he said, okay, a car's going to come over here, take you to HMX-1. HMX-1 is the presidential helicopter section. That's what the president's helicopter is. And they have 3 or 4 of them over there. So me and an Italian guy was the only 2 in the barracks at that time. It was a weekend, a Saturday. And he says they're going to fly you up to Camp David. See, Marines provide security for Camp David too, the embassies and also Pentagon and also the presidential guest house. So that's what the White House detail did. So you have some remarkable experiences. Very young. The next morning, the Kennedy clan is there. We go. Camp David has a real nice chapel on it, and Kennedy came in with Jackie, Peter Lawford, the whole Kennedy clan was there. And both of us, me and the Italian guy from New York, we standing there just dumbfounded because this is quite an experience for two 20-year-olds. I know I was 20 by that time. I had just, I think maybe I was going to have a birthday that August. Yeah. So I had a 20th birthday right around the corner, 21st birthday, I forget. So after the Mass, he came over and talked with us. And from that time on, every time they went up, we went up too. Naturally, when he was killed, it took everybody by surprise. I remember it was a beautiful Friday, and we were down in the mess hall just talking. This guy called the Joker came up and he says, "Hey guys, Mr. Kennedy's been shot. It's on the news." So based on that, what happened was I got 2 or 3 assignments to different places. I was sent over to Bethesda Hospital where they did the autopsy. And then later on, I got the assignment to do the death watch, when the body was being displayed at the White House and at the Capitol. That left a lot of personal thoughts about the world. And I think the most significant thought I had about that was, darn, I said, they can kill the president of the United States. They can do anything. And also that Saturday morning, while we were practicing, it was 50 of us in a building across from the White House, 10 from each service. We were going to bury the president, 50 of us, right, doing different things. So we got this last minute detail to come over to the White House to stop training what we were doing because guests were arriving from all over the world. So I was stationed outside. They gave me an umbrella and said, okay, when these people pull up, make sure it was drizzling. Make sure that you keep an umbrella over, make sure they don't get wet. Oh, they was just drizzling. One of the people that pulled up in front of me was the limousine for President Eisenhower. So I knew it was him. He's tall, and plus back in those days, these men wore these bowler hats. So I got out, and it's this line of people waiting to go into the White House to give their respects. So a couple got cars down, someone says, Ike. And he turned around and said, John. It was John Foster Dulles. That was his Secretary of State when he was president. And I think one of the most defining moments was when Dulles came up to Ike and he said, John, you know what? He said, Jack called me 2 weeks ago and told me that he was going to take this trip to Dallas. And I told him, I said, John, now is not the time to go to Texas. And what it meant to me being so, I was naive with that type of politics. I thought that maybe if you were a Democrat or you was Republican, that this was not but it's a brotherhood. The presidency is a brotherhood. Your party doesn't make any difference. Once you're the president, you all are the same. And so I'm thinking to myself, I said, darn, I didn't know that presidents from different parties really kept up with one another. But at the same time, after I kind of processed that, I was asking myself a question. I said, wonder why he would tell him now is not a good time to go to Texas. I guess he realized that Kennedy was going to Texas to try to mend the rift between the Democrats and the South because the South felt betrayed because Kennedy coming from Massachusetts and being relatively new in politics as a senator.
Yeah, right, and Irish too.
And Irish. And how is he going to trump Lyndon Johnson? How's Lyndon Johnson being up on his ticket as the vice president? It should have been the other way around because Johnson had more experience in the Senate and so forth and so forth. So it took me a minute to kind of piece all those things together. But I just thought it was just a remarkable moment. And there were several other remarkable moments, but that was one that I thought was just so ironic that
So you was part of that team.
To just hear that,
Right.
to hear that expressed the way, knowing that they know the politics ran that
Wow.
deep. So the other situation was the March on Washington. I'm an NCO at the time. I'm a corporal, and we practicing. Dr. King is coming for the March on Washington. It's August 1965. So we're practicing crowd control. Everybody's going to be in Marine combat gear with rifles and bayonets, and we're down practicing formations, hand signals, and everything for this impending riot that's going to take place. So one day, during a break, I ran up into squad B, and when I ran in, we were running on the move, and I saw this young man that I didn't recognize. It was me. I looked, and looked at all the gear. I said, you a soldier. You're not really Ronnie Wilson anymore. It just really grabbed me that you're in a very serious part of life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I thought about it during chow. I was eating. I said, well, why, knowing how I feel about things, the experience I had being Black in the South, I'm now getting ready to take up arms in preparation for some perceived violent act when Dr. King is coming in peace. So it bothered me to the point that next day I knocked on the door to the platoon sergeant's office, and I said, Sergeant Hapgood, I said, I have a little problem I want to talk to you about. He said, what is it? I gave my history about being son of the South and born in Atlanta, Georgia, and all these things that were going on with the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him I just felt uncomfortable with standing out there with a rifle and a bayonet as a show of force when Dr. King's movement was, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, Dr. King's movement was for all the right reasons to try to bring human rights and civil justice to colored people. We still using colored then. Initially, he had his hands behind his head, listening to me, and he was leaning back. And when I finished, he said, "That it?" He looked up and he says, "You really feel that way, son?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Guess what? You don't have to do that. We're going to find something else for you to do." Unheard of. Unheard of. Like I said, you're learning how to get the courage to be brave. And I'm an NCO. I give orders to Marines. What he was supposed to say in the Marine Corps was that, you better get your such and such A out of here and take orders and give orders the way you're supposed to and get out of my face with all this. That didn't happen.
So he was empathetic to the situation.
He was empathetic
to what you believe.
to what I believe, but they said, guess what?
I
had to ask for it.
Yeah.
If you didn't ask for
not,
it,
you have not.
Huh?
You ask not, you have not.
That's right. That's
You gotta
right.
ask.
So I'm really growing up now. I'm really becoming. It's another fiber in that quilt of being a man,
Right.
and getting that confidence and that courage. From there,
For the Marine Corps, what you coming to a close and you getting ready to go to
actually, by this time I had been. I went to Clark. It wasn't Morehouse.
Oh, Clark.
Clark. They had a very good program there. Plus, I picked Clark because my mom went to Clark, and it was that sentimental thing that I applied to Clark.
That's my alma mater.
Right. Yeah. So since I had gotten acceptance at Clark for September, I wasn't supposed to get out until November, my anniversary date. I applied for a waiver to get an early out so that I could go to college in September, and they gave it to me.
Okay.
So the beat continues to go on and on. If you don't ask, but sometimes things are just made for you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I get on out. I'm in the last semester of my third year, getting ready to start sending transcripts out to medical schools. Then they have this shooting downtown. I had a little break in there. I had this shooting downtown in 1973. A young man by the name of Joe Comer was shot by one police officer, and from that point on, it became a conspiracy because one of them had a drop knife and he put it in the young man's hand. And they almost got away with it, but somebody saw something and said something. And when it became clear over the next 2 or 3 days that it was unjustified shooting, we had a lot of
was it student protests?
Protests, a lot of protests. Yeah, there was no way I was not going to be a doctor. I was either going to Haiti, West Africa, or Mississippi, and they call it Doctors Without Borders now. But I was going to go where Black people needed a good doctor, and it wasn't about money or prestige. Give me a chicken, give me some eggs, and we're gonna take care of this. That's where I was. Like I said, you wired to help people in trouble, and medicine was my field. Plus, I spent a lot of time in Grady EMS, and I have to say, before I came to the police department, my notoriety as a maverick was at Grady, because I got on Grady EMS, and my most remarkable.
So leaving Clark, you went to EMS.
Well, I was
became a medic.
I was going to school and driving at Grady. I was
one
of the first black drivers down.
Okay, you were student and
right.
Oh,
and so
it
gave me access to emergency rooms and so forth. And so the most remarkable thing that happened with me at Grady, there were so many events that, like I said, I was a lightning rod for good trouble. I was there right next to Grady Detention. There was a lot of abuse going on down there. People knew my name before I even applied to the police department, because I was always there to say something about
some type of injustice.
And the police, not only just right there at Grady Hospital, even out on the street, trying to get deal with patients. I remember once they were trying to get me to walk a Black male, a brother who was shot in the chest. They're trying to pick him up and walk him to the ambulance. I said, we don't do this. I said, put that man on a stretcher. So you'd be surprised as to what these people thought about us. The medical care in the Black community, it was so much different.
Yeah.
They would want you to
almost
abuse your people, but you get a call, let's say a hotel room is 6, 7, a person down, and you get in there. This man is almost in rigor mortis. He's turning gray. He's been dead for a few hours. Hurry up, get him. He's low sick. They want you to take a dead man, put the dead man on a stretcher, rush him to Grady. I said, this man is dead. This one called at 280 Brockenford Road on a Saturday in February, 1970, I think it was, a shooting call. Picked up the phone. She said, Wilson got one shot out there at 280 Brockenford Road. Said they screaming. So I said, okay. So I got my check. I said, we got a 50. And we rolled up on that probably in 2 or 3 minutes, because all you had to do was go out and hit Decatur Street. And as fast as we were going, we were there in 3 minutes. We had a captain. He's a police officer at the time. I was driving, and when I pulled up, I said, I'm going to turn the ship around and for the return trip to Grady. So he went up to the door, and I turned around. The guy now was opening up the back to get the stretcher out, and he came out and says, no need for that. He said, he's a 48, which means a person dead. I said, okay, we were busy. And so I said, okay. So I get back in, buckling up, and say, what happened? Where's the shot? This thing we asked. He said, I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? He says, police officer said he's dead. I said, well, you got to check him. You can't just take his word for it. So we got paperwork to fill out. And so I get out. I'm a diplomat. I'm civil. I walk up to him and say, excuse me, sir. I'm Ron Wilson, and my text says that he didn't check the victim. I said, I know you want to protect the crime scene, so can we just make a quick check? And you'd be surprised at how they can feel about stuff like that. That was a privileged white man's job, that great ambulance. So anyway, he said the best thing for you to do is get in an ambulance and get on back to Grady. Then he took the the screen door, and he pushed up against my feet. I'm only a few years out of the Marine Corps. My first reaction is just like Corporal Abear down there at ITR. I immediately said, nobody pushes, and I pushed back on him. He says, you're under arrest. I said, oh, I said, then take me. I'm crazy now, you know. I'm crazy. That's just, but okay, I'm under arrest, take me. And I pushed it back on him. He came out and I grabbed him. He reached out for me, I grabbed him. I did a little maneuver. We have a tuck and roll, put my knees underneath his chest and flipped him over. At that time, police car rides up, 2-man unit. They see this. This is 63. Officer needs help. So we all scrambling around there on the ground for about 15 seconds. This is going on. I'm feeling comfortable. I'm not scared. But I know that this is a serious situation because I'm fighting with police officers. So I see Compton unsnaps. This is why we still got those border holsters, those 38s. I see him unsnap and get ready to pull his gun out. I said, okay, y'all got this one. I backed down. So y'all got this one. And I wound up in the back of the police car on the way to jail, and the Grady ambulance was on the back of the record going back to Grady Hospital. When stuff like that happens? Never heard of anything like this before in your life.
Doesn't look good.
Doesn't look, well, I mean, bottom line, the very fact that it happened.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. The very fact that it happened. But at the same time, it wound up with me going to court and Judge Brock dismissing the case, but he asked the judge to hold up because he's going to get a warrant from DeKalb County. And I wound up staying in the city jail till he got that. Somehow he got that warrant, arrest warrant for me in less than an hour. And I was on my way now back to jail. Not Atlanta, but DeKalb County.
Transporting you over there.
Right.
County, state charges.
So now Grady's got to come over there another again to get me out. The administration got to send some people over there to get me out of jail again on the same charge. But by this time, ACLU has heard about this case, so it's now become a media event. It gets the news. ARC, the Atlanta Regional Council, takes it up as an issue, and they resolved by saying I was right, that a police officer can't deny
access to a
medical care.
Right.
Medical care. So it's good trouble. So it meant that by the time this kid is shot, a couple of years later, I'm deciding I'm going to join the police department, see if I can make a difference. Even though I said I'm going to stop my,
in spite of what happened,
my studies for a little while, because something's got to be done. They're killing us when they want to. I went on a call once on Grady on a shooting call, police involved shooting over off University Avenue one.
So that event you went ahead and applied.
Right, I did.
And so now you went through the academy, and now you're a police officer.
Well, I applied, but I was rejected. So I was unsuitable, unqualified because of the background investigation. I had this situation with. They did a thorough investigation. I was unsuitable to be a police officer. So I said, no way. I said, my military background, everything I'm doing, I said, I'm going to appeal it. So based on the history of it, the first appeal, one of the clerks tore it up and put it in the trash basket. I found that out because I didn't hear anything. I went back down there. So somebody said they're going to hand walk it this time now. So they give me a hearing date. And now that I get the hearing date, I said, well, what do I do now? I said, I appeal it because I think I'll be a good police officer or something else. I said, nope. I said, I thought about it for a minute. I said, no. I said, I'm going to appeal it based on the selection process. So I turned that into a debate over the same selection process that's denied me is the same process that hired them. And look at what they did with it. So I was able to counteract, give a good argument about that.
Okay.
And say it's flawed.
Okay.
And then I really put in a strong argument for my actions,
And
everything.
you won. You
I
won
won
the
it,
appeal.
And I won. That's
and
how I
then
got.
you were allowed to go to the academy and graduate academy.
That's right. That's how it happened.
And be assigned to the police department.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Once I went to the police department, I was a good candidate for a number of things. The SWAT team was interested in me. Captain Spence and Lieutenant Shepard's pet project. That was the first SWAT team that they were going to put together. But
this was the era during the Maynard Jackson was getting elected as mayor too.
I came in under the first chief we had was Herbie Jenkins.
Right.
For a very short period of time. Then we had the other officer, the one that Maynard Jack. They had the standoff down there where he refused to leave his office. So I came in that controversy, and immediately some of the things that began to attract me. I can remember being a recruit and being assigned to downtown foot patrol, and Plaza Park was one of the places they preyed on homeless people. So one afternoon, I had been assigned to this white officer. Of course, I was a rookie, so in name only. While he was making an illegal arrest, he says, "Call me a wagon partner. I'm still on probation." And I said, "This is not a good arrest." He said, "Call me a wagon." I said, "You call your own wagon. This is your call." He went on and did it, but I tell you, as soon as that wagon came, it was getting close time for us to get off. We used to park our cars in underground Atlanta. He jumped in that car and jumped down there to let them know that I refused to assist. That was about the second. That was one of maybe 2 or 3 complaints against me for failure to assist. But in each case, it was good trouble because on principle, I was right.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lieutenant that was in charge of us. He called me and asked me what problem was. I told him, I said, in my opinion, it wasn't a good arrest. We could have easily just gotten the man up and told him to go on. He's a white guy, wasn't black. This is not a black citizen. So to ease things, he said, "Well, you're going to drive the wagon from now on." So they put me in the wagon. They didn't try to bring anything disciplinary against me.
Mm-hmm.
Another situation came up once when they had that tactical squad. They were trying to break up. They were plainclothes trying to break up thefts from cars down there in Peachtree, Mitchell Street area. There was another officer. I was surprised to see that he was taking part in them literally beating his prisoner right there, almost on the street. It's white. Another is the white victim again. I saw it going on, and it's just like the Rodney King situation. You know, you had somebody there who's supposed to stop that. I stepped in between them at the same time, taking out my handcuffs, and I said, "I got him. I'm going to handcuff him." Now, these are all senior officers. This is like a fugitive squad. These guys been on for a minute.
Right.
And it shocked everybody. But then again, somebody still tried to hit him up. And I said, "I'm going to tell you right now, either one of y'all hit me or kick me," I said, "it's going to be on." And they just stopped right where they were. I handcuffed him. They went ahead and made their arrest. 3 hours later, I get a call from Robinson, Sergeant Robinson. You know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He and Vernon were my supervisors then. They've been charged of foot patrol. So Robbie said, "Get in the car, Ron." He said, "What happened down there with Captain so-and-so in the fugitive squad?" I told him what happened. I said it was overkill, and I just stepped in between. I said, "I didn't fail to." He said, he called me and told me that you failed to assist, and that since you're on probation, he's thinking about kicking you off the police department. I said, "Well, they can't say I failed to assist because I put my handcuffs on him. I'm the one that handcuffed him." I said, "But what they were doing was something we don't do. And plus, it was right there in the public. People walking by and driving by, seeing all these police officers whipping on this one person on the ground who's not offering any." And he said, "Well, anyway," he says, Captain so-and-so, he's concerned whether you're going to make a report. Are you going to report it? I said, even if I report, it's not. I said, this is a mindset here. This is a culture. This is what they do. I said, all I did was intervene when I thought it needed to be done. And so nothing came of it. But all throughout my career down there was always something like that I was putting my hands on. With some notable police officers.
It takes a long time to change that culture.
Yeah,
it takes decades,
yeah,
decades, and it's still in that medification of changing.
Right.
Yeah.
And once I got on
still
911,
still got a little few more decades to go. I think.
So they took me off of foot patrol. Now they give me a call in Zone 3. So my first call, one of my first calls, wound up in me having to make an arrest. So we had to pull behind the station. To the jail, and they had this big table back there that put their things on before they go in. So I pull up, and these two white, once again, two officers, no names. But anyway, I see this white female, redhead, on this table, and they're pounding on her. So I get out, and I walk up and I say, "Oh, whoa, 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 whoa!" I said, "It's a lady." I said, let me help you out here. What you got to do with this? This is not your case. I said, I got everything to do with it. I said, because y'all pounding on this lady like this, and it just never occurred to me to say, turn my back. But see, when you do things like that, now the word is out on you. That officer there, so and so and so and so. They say you have to watch him. You have to watch him. And so this was part of my experience there in the police department. I had some great experiences. I worked 911 in all the zones except not one. I supervised in 2 of those zones, Zone 6, Zone 3. I worked homicide, missing persons. Did major drug violators. They sent me up as the supervisor for research and development, writing up SOPs and papers. So that was the chief's office. So I was only accountable to the chief at that particular point. So I pretty much had a good, remarkable experience in most of police operations.
And you worked around Sunset and down there where Martin Luther King lived too. Did you ever meet Martin Luther King?
No, I didn't.
Never
I
met
didn't. But I did. They had a major crime problem in '73, and I came up with a plan that was so comprehensive. The scope of what I was doing required me to have some authority, and since I was just a patrolman at that time,
right.
I did this initiative. So they gave me what they call a superior officer to help me put forth some of the resources. Some of the resources were ranking members of the police department, because I had organized several meetings over there in Vine City to address the problem. And one night, it was well covered by the media, and they would interview me and so forth, and ask me this question about this and that. And so one night, the last meeting I had, a white citizen came up to me and said, "You know what? I've talked to people. We've been keeping up with this on the news." And he says, "You need to do something like this somewhere else." He says, "A lot of people are afraid to come over here in this neighborhood," because it was Vine City. Because I have the meetings at the Kennedy Middle School. And so at first I was feeling a little offended about it. But then another sense said, well, maybe he's got a point. So I called down, and all I had to do was sometimes think of things and do it, and it happened. I called down and reserved the Civic Center for a citywide. Now I'm going to have a citywide meeting. I had contacted people from different churches downtown, the colleges. I reached out to educators. And once I wrote that plan out, and I had actually they actually gave me the dates that I could book it for that citywide meeting. And then I get a call, 2 days later, I get a call from Napa. And Napa says, Commissioner Brown wants us to meet in his office. I got in the office, he says, Officer Muwakkil, he says, you've really done a great job out there. He says, so and so and so and so. But the mayor has come up with his own plan.
And this is Mayor who?
Jackson.
Okay, Mayor Jackson.
Yeah. He's come up with his own plan, and so it won't be necessary for you to continue that. So I get a call on like Paige. We didn't have cell phone back. Paige said, Muwakkil, have you seen the paper? I said, no. He says, they stole your program.
Yeah.
He said they stole it to the T. The mayor they're calling it something else, but he said it's your it's your program. I said, well, you know what? It's okay because it never was about me. I said,
that's right.
You know, it started with Harvey Wright and I, and so we got training. We had firearms training, and in those days we going to the academy. I picked up the paper and there was these shooting events. They killed a cardiologist who came in for a convention down on Piedmont, and there's also a citizen who had run up to a police car there at Peters and Whitehall at the service station saying, "There's a man right behind me trying to shoot and kill me." And no sooner than he said that, the man did come up and shoot the man in front of the police officers right there in his car and was able to get away. And I thought about it, I said, Harvey, I said, this man ran up to a police car, is shot and killed, and how does he get away? And the police is right there when it happens. I said, something really needs to be done about this. I said, I'm going to see what I can come up with. And that's how it all started.
Okay. You actually was a trailblazer on the police department. And
I never saw it as that. That day I stopped and talked to you. You were the first and only person that made me stop and think that maybe I might have had some people who didn't think that I was such a maverick.
It was many of us, particularly a lot of friends of mine that admire you, your tenacity to make decisions on your own, right decision. So that has we have watched you from afar from the time that we came on in the police department. Your integrity stands out, amongst us. But then not only you was a police officer and then a great supervisor, but also you was an entrepreneur. I know you had a house in East Lake Meadows, and I know you able to sold that because the equity value in that house just bloomed up. So you did well in real estate and a lot of other business ventures that you went in.
Yeah, I have fish
so
market.
you had a lot of ideas, just not law enforcement, but you was entrepreneur. And could you talk about a little bit about your engagement in real estate and acquiring property?
I just happen to be, a lot of this is about being a visionary. And I became reacquainted with Vine City because my grandmother was an entrepreneur down on Delbert Street, which is right there next, her house butted Magnolia Street. So I used to play over there. She sold coal, wood, ice, and drinks. And she also made lye soap in a big pot and sold it. She did that after her husband, who was my grandfather, he was murdered. He's a preacher. And so she had to do something to make ends meet because she still had 4 or 5 children at home, which included my mother. So I knew then about what it meant to have a business. So when I did that, decided on that location in Vine City to do the crime fighting plan, I became reacquainted with Vine City. And so I eventually bought a house over there because I was going back and forth and I was thinking about when I was a child. And
so it was your first home there.
Yeah.
Then you proceeded over to East Lake area.
Right. But I think I might have already bought that house in East Lake.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And I happened to find that because I was taking an extra class out at DeKalb College, and I took a shortcut through that street, and it happened to be. And I said, "This is a really nice house, street to live on." And that time you go through and pick those houses up for like 2 digits.
Okay.
And so it just it's a matter of being in the right place at the right time, having a vision, even the vision of where I had that fish market. Once I moved over into Vine City, about over there, people would often say, "Why would you move up in Vine City? That's a crime written there." I said, "It's crime everywhere." I said, "But this is right downtown." I said, "It's not going to always be like this. You can walk to the stadium." I said, They have three MARTA stations within walking distance and bus feeders. I said, it's a no-brainer. And so I went to I had a fish market there at Magnolia and Northside
Because you
Drive.
always ate a healthy diet.
Yeah. I guess if you want to call it healthy, it was. Yeah. Yeah, I was particular about what I ate then. Yeah. Made inquiries about buying that corner there, right across from where the state, where the Falcons are now.
Mercedes-Benz.
Right. 2 digits, a 2-digit figure, $80,000 could buy the whole block. And I said, I think I can do this. But I wasn't tied in personally and otherwise to people I needed help with that, or who shared that vision. I went to a couple of banks, especially, and a couple of banks really African American made. Nobody wanted to lend me the money. All I had to have was 20% of 80,000. And I said, shoot, you can't even these days. You can't even buy a house for $80,000. I said, let me see about doing this. But everyone that I mentioned this to assured me that you lose your shirt over there. That's crime. And my arguments didn't help. But then I started thinking. I said, well, I do have a lot going on. I said, I'm working extra jobs. I got this fish market going. I bought a house. I bought 2 houses. And the person really close to me, she's not for it. And I said, well, maybe I'm overdoing it because there were no mini me's. So I gave up on it. And so I guess about 5 months after that, I was looking through the paper and it said Falcons looking for new home. And they had a small diagram there, right, the gulch, where they're going to put it. And I said, well, that's right across the street from the fish market. And I called the owner of the property. I said, Mr. Red, this is Mr. Muwakkil. We talked about that building. I said, I'm thinking maybe we can still go on with that because I was going to find a way now. He said, well, Mr. Muwakkil, I tell you what. He said, still for sale, but the price has changed. It changed to $250,000.
80,000, $250,000. Yeah.
And at that point, I realized, as conscious as you are, as thoughtful as you are about these things, and you think these things out, you let people talk you out of people talk you out of that. You really began to see things through their eyes. I said, don't ever let anybody take your dream away from you. Okay, that's where I felt about it. Because you couldn't help but do it because it was a doable situation.
So,
and so,
in summing all the things you did in your life, from growing up in high school, college, military college, and then the Atlanta Police Department, and I know you've been very successful in real estate. If you sum all that up, and your kids, future grandkids, and great-great-grands, what advice you would give them?
That's a question that is very difficult to really hit the nail on the head.
You can do it.
But it encompasses being a visionary. You have to become acutely aware of the environment. You have to have some type of goal in life as to what you want to be. And I think that what happened with me is that the social stratification that I encountered being an African in America, being a male in a city like Atlanta, Georgia, and all of the political activity that were going on, you had to have a certain motivation to raise yourself and your people. See, one thing, I love my people. Biggest blessing I can think of is being born Black in America. And then being born in a dynamic city like Atlanta, Georgia. Everything was happening. Education was here. The original name of the city was Terminus. It's where everything ended, but at the same time, it was where it began because it was full of railroads. All the crops were coming into Atlanta to a terminal point. All the agriculture, the textiles, the cotton. Guess where it was going? To New York. The crops were going to New York, and the East Coast. The cotton was going to the apparel market to be made into so my energy was seeing pictures of Emmett Till, seeing video of the Soweto massacre, where these Dutch soldiers on a stake body truck was shooting down and killed about. These things hurt me to my heart. And I can remember going to school after seeing the shooting of Soweto, the massacre, 70-something people, men, women, and children. And I could not wait the next morning to meet my little group up there at Mosley Drive and Anderson Avenue. They used to have a building up Ball Hill garage. And the first thing I said, did you see the TV last night and they killed all those colored people? I said, man, that made me so mad. I said, I now know I gotta go to school and be a doctor and make some money so I can send them some money so they can buy some guns and shoot back. That's one hell of a...
You was driven from the...
It was driven...
The experiences African Americans
the hurt to see my people
right.
And know that the instinct kicked in that I'm a warrior. I may be the son of a slave, but I'm still a warrior. I'm an African warrior here in America, but we can't protect our women and our children.
So
you got to be able to feel that in your spirit.
You want them to be driven,
to be driven,
not to be stagnated, but to continue to move. And so forward
one of the ways we do that
Okay.
is to buy into the economic, into what I call. I knew then. I read a lot. So you've got to be well read. You have to read everything you can so that you'll know the current events of everything around you, to grow that in you. So I knew that it wasn't going to be so much the civil rights movement, but it was going to be green power. If we could get together and get these businesses, make money, create money, not just services, not barbecue. Not barbershops and hair salons and nail salons.
You want to have manufacturers.
We need to manufacture. We need to manufacture. We need to produce things.
Right.
And when I realized that, I said, I won't be able to preach any message of our freedom unless I have a track record.
And the last,
I'm not making this up.
I'm right.
I knew I had to have I can't get on a soapbox and talk about what we ought to do.
Right.
I have to be able to say, this is what I did, and this is the way we're going to get that green power so that the color of our skin won't make any difference.
And lastly, one thing I've had admired about you over the years, and you are what, age 83?
Right.
And I know you was working as a police officer, part-time jobs after your retirement, all the way up to probably 80 years old. And I want to know, and you always been fit, great condition, healthy. Do you want to talk about your diet or exercise? What did you do that different from a lot of police officers who usually have a lot of ailments, and when they get to be 70, they're very sickly. Could you just expound on your health? What makes you look good? Because you still look like you belong in a GQ magazine. So let us know
What? I can't say this works for everybody, but I think I had a certain spiritual nature. I had a very a remarkable connection to God. And at a very critical point in my life, I decided to study and accept Islam. And it was the constraints of Islam in terms of your social behavior, your diet. Even Elijah Muhammad wrote a book on how to eat to live. And many of the things that's in that book are now being practiced by people. So you have to, in other words, to condense this into one phrase is, you have to put a guard at the gatehouse of all the five senses. That's the only way you can be corrupt.
Okay.
What you listen to, whether it's music, whether it's crazy talk, what you put your eyes on, if it's going to be something wholesome, or it's going to be pornography, if it's going to be something that you're allowing to come through your olfactory, your nose, or something you're eating, or something you're touching, or you have it's your eroticism out of control. You got to even discipline that, how your body reacts. You got to train yourself to not to look at things that you don't have to look at. I still see, and don't get me wrong with this, older men who still have to turn to look every time an attractive woman goes by, they got to go, man, did you see that? When you go to get used to a woman, you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
This is what I'm saying. You gotta fight the environment that you're in and put your mind on something positive. You got to have that self-discipline to actually justify your critique of other things that are affecting your people, that are keeping us from and we all have that innate ability.
Okay.
But the society and what we have embraced as being, certain things have now been normalized.
Okay.
And that is stealing our creativity and our commitment to freeing ourselves, and our men reaching the level of being able to protect their community, their women, their children, and our women knowing how to appreciate a good man.
Sarge, I'm Muwakkil. Yeah, I'm glad to have you here, and it's been an interesting interview. And I wish that we can go on and on, but we've run out of time. And I tell you, man, it's been a great interview.
I may have gone on
but you know what? I'm glad that it has happened. We got you in the box. It is done, and it was like Christmas when you said I'll be there. And you were on time, and I'm just happy. So now let's shake hands and let's get ready to go get something to eat.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate it.